Good morning and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that can be very challenging, and that's forgiveness. I need to be honest with you right from the start. I'm talking about this because I need to learn it. You know the saying, we teach what we most need to learn, and I have some real learning to do here. I have a much easier time forgiving people who have wronged me than I do forgiving people who have hurt or wronged those I love. When someone does something to me, I can work through it, usually pretty quickly. But when someone hurts someone I care about deeply, oof, that is another story. And recently it became clear how much forgiveness work I still need to do around my grandma's dad. I have so much work to do because until very recently, I never even entertained the idea of forgiving him. He's been dead for years. My grandmother has passed away now, but the abuse he inflicted on her, the horrible, devastating abuse in all ways, that's something I'm still carrying the anger and rage for what he did. And it's rippled through our family for generations because it impacted her entire life. And we all saw that. We all knew that. And she was such an amazing source of love. It was so hard to see and accept that anyone would choose to hurt someone like that. And now he's dead. She's also gone. And I'm still here carrying this unforgiveness. I thought I was carrying it like a badge of honor or proof to show how much I loved and still love my grandma. But I'm starting to realize it's a weight, one that she tried to let go of most of her life, and one she would have never wanted to pass on. But that's what unforgiveness does. It keeps us bound long after everyone involved has moved on or passed away. It affects not just us, but those we love and who love us, sometimes for generations. Today we're going to explore the metaphysics of forgiveness. What it actually is, why it's for us and not for them, how it releases us from an internal prison without releasing them from accountability. And we're going to talk about self-forgiveness too, because sometimes the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. So let's start with what unforgiveness actually does. When someone wrongs us or hurts us, or someone we love, holding on to that hurt feels righteous. It feels like we're honoring the pain, bearing witness to the wrong. It can feel like if we let go of the anger, we're somehow saying what they did was okay. But here's the metaphysical truth. Unforgiveness doesn't hurt them. It only hurts us. Think about it. My grandma's father, he's been dead for years. My unforgiveness doesn't touch him. My anger doesn't reach him. My holding on to this rage doesn't make him accountable. It doesn't undo what he did. And unfortunately, it doesn't heal my grandma. All it does is keep me imprisoned by holding on to it. I know we've all heard this. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That poison is bad for us. Call it poison, call it a prison we build for ourselves. Either way, we're not doing great. Myrtle Fillmore understood this deeply, and she wrote, "Beloved child of God, I release you from my fears and anxieties. I see you as God sees you, perfect, healed, and free." Notice what she's doing there. She's not saying the person didn't do wrong. She's not excusing their behavior. She's releasing them from her fears and anxieties. She's freeing herself from the energetic bond that unforgiveness creates. Because here's the metaphysical reality. When we hold unforgiveness, we're energetically bound to that person and that situation. We're in constant relationship with it. Every time we replay it, every time we feel the anger, Every time we tell this story, we're feeding energy into that bond. We're keeping ourselves connected to that pain. So let's get clear about what forgiveness actually is from a metaphysical perspective. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It's not excusing the behavior. It's not pretending it didn't hurt. It's not even necessarily reconciling with the person. It certainly isn't allowing harm to continue. Forgiveness is releasing yourself from the energetic prison of resentment. Forgiveness is cutting the cord that binds you to that pain, that person, or that event, or all of the above. Forgiveness is about choosing freedom over being right. Myrtle taught, this perfect love now breaks all cycles of revenge, hatred, and divisive competition. This perfect love mirrors itself in a consciousness of peace and forgiveness, motivating me to right action in thought, word, and deed. Notice, forgiveness breaks cycles. It doesn't continue or perpetuate them, it breaks them. When we hold unforgiveness, we're continuing the cycle of pain. We're keeping the wound open, and we're letting what happened continue to happen in our consciousness over and over again. But when we forgive, we break that cycle. We stop rewounding. We close the energetic loop. Another often repeated saying is wounded people wound people. When we hold on to unforgiveness, we hold on to the wounds, and intentionally or otherwise, directly or indirectly, we wound others, often those we love the most. In Matthew 18:21 through 22, Peter asked Jesus, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answers, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. 77 times, in other words, unlimited. Keep forgiving. Now, why would Jesus say that? Not because the other person needs you to forgive them 77 times, but because you need to forgive them 77 times. Because unforgiveness can keep coming back. Hurts resurface, anger returns, and each time you get to choose freedom again. What I learned from my grandma's struggles to forgive her father is that forgiveness isn't one and done. It's a practice. And that verse is teaching us that we practice it for ourselves, for our own freedom, as many times as we need to. And here's something crucial. Forgiveness doesn't release them from accountability. It releases us from bondage. My grandmother's father is accountable for what he did, whether I forgive him or not. The universe has its own accounting system. Divine wisdom has its own justice. My unforgiveness doesn't add to his accountability. It just adds to my suffering. Here's the hard truth. Unforgiveness only hurts them if they care enough to want your forgiveness in the first place. And most of the people who cause deep hurt, they're not laying awake at night worried about your forgiveness. They've moved on. They're living their lives. You're the one still carrying it. My grandma's father never apologized or acknowledged what he did. He never asked for forgiveness, and now he's dead. My unforgiveness has 0 impact on him. Absolutely none. But it has impact on me. It affects my peace. It affects my ability to be fully present because part of me is always back there angry about what he did. Unforgiveness is a burden we carry, thinking we're making the other person carry it, but we're the only ones who feel the weight. Charles Fillmore taught that we have one presence, one power in the universe, God the Good. When we hold unforgiveness, we're giving power to the past, to the pain, and to the person or situation that hurt us. We're making them more powerful than the divine. We're saying what you did to me is stronger than God's healing in me. And that's just not true. The divine can heal anything. Love can transform anything. Peace is available in any moment, but not while we're gripping unforgiveness. Now, I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing. You can be honest about your pain and your hurt. You don't have to pretend like you weren't affected by something to be willing to forgive. Luke 6:37 says, "Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Forgive, and you will be forgiven, not by them, by life itself, by the universe, by the weight lifting off your shoulders. So let's talk about what becomes possible when we forgive. We get our energy back. All that energy that we've been pouring into resentment, into replaying the hurt, into staying angry, that energy becomes available for our life, for our joy in the present moment. We break the generational cycle. When my grandma's father abused her, that created trauma that affected her entire life. That trauma affected who she married and all her future relationships, which of course affected my mother, who had a much better experience than my grandma. And it also affected me, though I had a much better experience, because we were holding that unforgiveness too. The pain rippled forward through generations. But when we forgive, when we cut that cord and release that energy, we stop the ripple. The pain stops. It doesn't continue forward into the next generation. We reclaim our power. As long as we're holding unforgiveness, we're giving our power away. We're making them the reason we can't be at peace. We're making what they did the thing that determines our well-being. But when we forgive, we take back our power. We say, "You don't determine my peace. What you did was wrong, and I'm choosing to be free anyway." We align with divine love. God doesn't hold grudges. Spirit doesn't carry resentment. Love doesn't keep score. When we forgive, we align ourselves with the highest consciousness available to us. We become channels for divine love instead of containers for human hurt. Finally, and this might be the most surprising thing, a lot of times things work out better than we could plan. When we're holding unforgiveness, we're so focused on the past that we can't see the blessings in the present, and we miss opportunities. We push away connection. We live in a contracted state. But when we forgive, we free ourselves. We open up to divine timing, to unexpected solutions, and to grace that we couldn't have imagined. Now, this is where I need to be really honest. Some things feel unforgivable. What my grandmother's father did to her, that feels unforgivable. So many terrible things that happen in the world, like child abuse, rape, torture, human trafficking. All these things feel like they're beyond forgiveness. And maybe they are. I'm not sure I'm capable of forgiving that level of harm. And that's okay, because here's what I'm learning. When we can't forgive, we can surrender. We can say to God, "I can't forgive this. It's too big. It's too wrong. It hurts too much. I surrender this to you. I release my need to hold this person accountable because I trust that you already are. I release my anger to you because I can't carry it anymore. I surrender." Surrender is different than forgiveness. Forgiveness is active. It's us releasing. Surrender is receptive. It's us letting God take it from us. And sometimes that's the path. Sometimes we surrender our unforgiveness to the divine and ask for it to be transformed in us. We may not be able to actively forgive, but we can actively choose not to carry this anymore. We can pray, "Divine love, I can't forgive this, but I'm willing to be free. Transform this in me. Heal what needs healing. Release what needs releasing. I surrender this to you. And then we practice letting it go over and over every time it comes back up. We can't talk about forgiveness without addressing self-forgiveness, because sometimes that's the hardest person to forgive, ourselves. Self-forgiveness can be just as hard or harder than forgiving others because we know our own intentions. We believe we know what we should have done differently, and we replay our mistakes endlessly. Maybe you hurt someone you love. Maybe you made a choice you regret. Maybe you failed in a way that matters to you, and you're carrying that guilt or shame or self-condemnation. And here's the truth. Self-unforgiveness is the same presence as unforgiveness for others. It keeps us bound. It keeps us in the past, and it keeps us identified with our worst moments instead of our divine nature. Myrtle Fillmore understood this when she healed herself. She had to ask forgiveness from her own cells for the way she'd been condemning them, calling them weak and diseased. She had to forgive herself for the foolish, ignorant course she had pursued. Self-forgiveness isn't about saying what you did was okay. It's about saying, I am not my worst moments. I'm a child of God. I am learning. I am growing. And I release myself from this prison. Here's a prayer from the Unity tradition that I find powerful. God Almighty, I forgive myself as you have already done. God has already forgiven you. The divine isn't holding your mistakes against you. Love doesn't condemn. Spirit sees your wholeness, not your errors. The only one still punishing you is probably you. So you can forgive yourself. You can release yourself from the prison of shame and guilt. You can choose to see yourself as God sees you, whole, loved, and worthy of grace. Self-forgiveness is choosing freedom, and it's choosing to stop the cycle of self-punishment and to believe that you're more than your mistakes. And if you can't actively forgive yourself, you can surrender it. You can say, God, I can't let this go. Will you take it from me? Will you transform my guilt or shame into wisdom and growth? Here's something else important. You don't need their permission to forgive. You don't need their apology. You don't even need their repentance. Forgiveness is not contingent on them acknowledging what they did or asking for forgiveness, because forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. My grandma's father never apologized. He died without acknowledging the harm. And that used to make me angrier. How dare he not face what he did? How dare he escape accountability? But I'm learning his lack of acknowledgement doesn't determine my freedom. His lack of repentance doesn't have to determine my peace. I can choose to be free anyway. Not because he deserves my forgiveness, but because I deserve my freedom. And that is what my grandma would want for me too. And you deserve yours, whether they ever acknowledge what they did or not, whether they ever say sorry or face what they did. You get to be free anyway. So let's get ready for our meditation now. So find a comfortable position and close your eyes if you're comfortable, or soften your gaze if not. And take a deep breath in and let it out. And take another deep breath in and let it out. And as you breathe out, imagine all the tension you may be holding in your body just thinking about this topic. Let that go. Let it escape with your breath. And now let your breathing fall into a natural rhythm. And when you're ready, bring to mind someone You need to forgive. Maybe it's someone that hurt you or hurt someone you loved. Or maybe it's yourself. Just let them come to mind. Don't force it. Just see who appears. And as they do, notice what happens in your body. Notice where the unforgiveness lives. Maybe it's tightness in your chest. Maybe it's a knot in your stomach. Maybe it's tension in your jaw. Just notice where you're carrying this. And now imagine that unforgiveness is like a heavy chain connecting you to that person, to that hurt, or that past moment. You can see that chain. You can feel its weight. And you're so tired of carrying it. You're tired of being bound to this pain. Now you have a choice. You can actively forgive. You can cut that chain yourself, releasing them and releasing yourself. Or you can surrender. You can hand that chain to the divine and ask for it to be cut for you. If you can forgive, imagine yourself with whatever tool comes to mind, whether it's a sledgehammer or a grinder or a blowtorch, whatever brings joy to you to imagine, and cut through that chain. And as you cut it, say it silently. I release you. I forgive you. I am free. Feel the weight drop away. Feel the freedom of cutting that cord. But if you can't forgive, if it feels too big or too wrong, imagine divine hands reaching towards you, hands of infinite love and wisdom, and place that chain in those hands. Say silently, I can't forgive this, but I'm willing to be free. Transform this in me. Release what needs releasing. I surrender this to you. Feel those hands taking the weight from you. Feel yourself being freed, even if you couldn't do the freeing yourself. Whether you forgave or surrendered, take a moment to feel the lightness, the space, the freedom of not carrying that weight anymore. And if thoughts come up like, but they don't deserve forgiveness, or but what I did was too wrong, just notice those thoughts and gently return to the feeling of freedom. This isn't about them. This is about you choosing to be free. Now we're going to move into a minute of silence and just rest in this state of freedom. If the weight tries to come back, just gently release it again or surrender it again as many times as you need to. And don't add more weight by judging yourself. Understand that this is a practice. This is not a one-time thing. Some things, maybe you'll only need to do it once or a couple times. Some things you may do it throughout your life. And neither is wrong. So just relax into our minute of silence. Right. As we come back from our minute of silence, take another deep breath and feel your body. Feel any difference now that this weight has been lifted. When you're ready, gently become aware of the room around you and open your eyes. I know I said this right as we were going into our moment of silence, but I want to say it again because what I'm learning about forgiveness is it's not a one-time event. It's a practice. But I don't think people hear that enough. I know that my grandma felt like she failed because she hadn't succeeded in permanently and forever forgiving her dad. But she didn't fail. She forgave over and over again as the pain and the hurt and the weight of what had happened came up. She forgave and she forgave and she forgave. And she continued to forgive what many would easily say is unforgivable because she understood that forgiveness was good for her and good for her family. So don't feel like a failure if it's not one and done. Don't expect it to be one and done. If it is, amazing. But if it's not, that's perfectly normal and okay. And it does not mean that you're failing. It means that forgiveness is a practice. You may have to forgive 77 times, which is unlimited times. I might have to forgive my grandma's father 1,000 times. Every time the anger comes back, every time I think about what he did, I get to make the choice again. Will I stay connected to him, bound to him and his actions, or will I choose freedom? And if I can't forgive in that moment, I can surrender. I can say, God, take this from me again. I thought I let it go, but it's back. Transform this in me. This is the practice, the daily moment by moment choice for freedom over resentment, peace over being right, and love over hate. And here's what makes it worth your while. Every single time you forgive, every time you surrender, you're breaking a cycle. You're freeing yourself and making space for something new. You're choosing to stop letting the past determine your present and to believe that divine love is more powerful than human hurt. You're choosing freedom. So whoever you need to forgive, someone else or yourself, you can start today. You can practice today. And if you can't forgive today, you can surrender. Either way, you deserve to be free. And so it is.